Welcome to the final segment, part 4 of the DAT Slayer. So next up we're going to talk about your study schedule from week to week and month to month. And I got this from my DAT prep instructor, and I liked it a lot. I modified it a bit, this specific part of his presentation, just to reflect exactly what I did. So here you can see I started studying the week after finals of my college semester, and I did 2 straight weeks of biology, of going through the Kaplan Blue Book and Cliff Notes, taking notes, making study guides, taking practice exams. So basically what you'll do is spend 1 or 2 weeks on each section, and then at the end of that week or two you'll take just a boot camp practice exam of that specific section, just to kind of evaluate where you're at. And then after you go over all of the materials, plus reading and the perceptual ability test as you go, just periodically, then the last few weeks you'll basically just review everything you went over and kind of follow an improvement cycle of raising your scores on your weakest sections. And you'll be taking practice exams a lot more towards the end as well. So here's the first couple weeks broken down. That first week was basically Kaplan Blue Book, and at the end of that first week, if you finish all of that, you can kind of take a boot camp biology practice test, and if you get a pretty high score, like a 20 or higher, you may feel comfortable enough to stop reviewing, or you may decide to practice some more biology questions in the DAT Destroyer to try to raise your score a little bit more when you take another practice exam. If you don't get as high, you may want to spend a whole extra week studying the Blue Book, the Cliff Notes, and supplementing it with other things, and hopefully try to raise your score up to where you want to be. Same thing with Gen Chem. You'll do Chad's videos. You can read the Kaplan Blue Book Gen Chem section if needed. I didn't use this hardly at all. But only the material that supplements Chad's videos, because he knows exactly what you need to know for the exam. You can take his quizzes to practice after you watch the videos, and then take another full Gen Chem boot camp practice test to see where you're at, and then from there you can decide to keep reviewing or stop reviewing. OChem is the exact same. And then for math, math is a little bit unique because schools don't place as high of an emphasis on DAT score versus the sciences and the perceptual ability test. So if you say you get a 17 or higher, you may, on a practice exam from top score or boot camp, you may feel comfortable enough to stop reviewing math after, you can get through these videos pretty quickly in about a half week. Or you may decide to keep practicing with Math Destroyer or other materials. So to go over that, just remember the sciences and the perceptual ability tests are the most important scores. So make them your top study priority. They definitely deserve the most time. The key is that you don't want reading or math to bring down your academic average too much. And so ultimately you want to stay fresh on everything, but focus more time on where you are the weakest, or where you can earn the most additional points, the low-hanging fruit. So this should be the strategy of your last 3 to 4 weeks. So now I'm going to talk about those last few weeks of studying and kind of the improvement cycle that I did that really helped to boost my score to the highest I could get to. And so what you're going to do is it's a 2 to 4 day cycle overall of review, practice, and evaluation. So during the cycle and throughout each day, you're going to alternate focus between 2 sections a few hours at a time. So half your time is going to be spent on one section. Usually you trade off between, what I would do is Gen Chem or organic chemistry or math. And during that time I would review all of my notes from Chad's videos. I would practice with DAT Destroyer problems, and then I might re-practice Chad's quizzes or take his practice exams as well. The other half of my time I would spend on my weakest section, which was biology, because there's just so much information there. And I would review roughly 1/4 or 1/5 of all of my typed biology notes or sections per day, and also go over DAT Destroyer problems to help practice. And Along with spending half my time here and half there, I would also take, PAT study breaks, usually 10 to 30 minutes a day. I would also review all my flashcards like we talked about, whether it was all of them once a week or just the ones I kept missing once a day. And some days I may have, known all the flashcards, and then I didn't have to spend any time on those flashcards that given day. Then once you get through this whole cycle of 2 to 4 days, you're going to take a boot camp practice exam on the sections that you were just reviewing. And so usually I would do this the next morning after the cycle, so basically at the start of a new one, just to test my long-term memory a little more instead of taking a practice exam on stuff I had just barely looked at that day. So here's a little easier summary of what I just talked about, this improvement cycle. Basically, you review and memorize your notes and flashcards. You do practice problems like Chad's quizzes or DAT Destroyer, and then add notes as you go from what you learn in those practice problems. And then you'll evaluate. There's supposed to be an arrow here. You'll evaluate with a practice exam, that usually a boot camp one, to see where you're at and also add notes as needed. And so remember, this is a 2 to 4 day cycle, and you want to focus on mainly 2 sections per cycle. And so what I would also recommend you do is keep a spreadsheet of your practice exam scores to kind of evaluate how you're doing over time in each section. So here's my specific spreadsheet. I remember when I initially took a top score exam in March, I got a 16, and I took another one as well and got a 16 both times, which is kind of discouraging, but it's amazing what 2 months of study can do for you. And it's amazing how that can motivate you as well to study hard, because as you can see in May, this is kind of what I was getting after my initial study sessions, and biology was consistently my weakest section. And also, just don't let practice exam scores discourage you, because, for instance, I took a Gen Chem practice test and I got a 30 on it on boot camp, so I was feeling on top of the world. But a few days later, after reviewing Gen Chem some more, I got an 18. And so that was pretty discouraging. But ultimately, you just have to let these practice scores fuel your motivation and kind of make it a competition between you and the practice exams as far as, working hard to raise your scores. And so you'll see I have my top score pro practice scores and Kaplan over here. These ones I took again towards the very end of my study period, just a few days before the real exam. And I was feeling pretty good about these sections towards the end, so I only took the sciences again, as you can see. But this is the score I ended up with, and the 25 is in the 99.9th percentile, and I got a 26. Which blew my mind. I was not expecting that. Based on my scores, I was expecting a 22, hoping for a 23. But I can promise you that this study guide that we just went over is legit. It's something that, a lot of info I gathered from other dental students who also did really well on the DAT, and I put it together in this presentation for you guys. And so I can promise you that if you put in the effort and just stick at it, then you can accomplish great things. And then to conclude, here are my 2 cents. Honestly, I think my best study strategy was to include God in it all. Because before each study session, I would just pray for help, that I would be focused and be able to remember and retain everything I was learning. And I would study the scriptures, kind of just get into a peaceful, focused mindset. And so I felt like the Spirit of God was my best study buddy. And whether you believe in God or not, I honestly believe that He wants the best for each of us, and He's here to help you to do your best and to be able to get to that career goal that you have, to achieve that and provide for yourself or your family. So if you have any other questions or need any help with anything, feel free to comment below. I will try to check the comments regularly and answer any questions you may have. And as Aragorn would say, you have my sword. Good luck.